All right, to start with today, I emailed you a folder this morning that's called 00-forthestudents.zip, and it's got some array examples on it. I'm going to go through those because we really didn't cover arrays in really any kind of depth whatsoever. So I've got some stuff that I've created that I'm going to put out there. Once we get done with that, I'm going to show you some other stuff, and we're going to go through that. And if there's any time left, we're going to start to get into chapters 6 and 7. So let's just see how it all goes. So again, got this folder. I'm going to extract it myself right here onto the desktop and just start to go over it with you. Here it is. As you can see when you look here, there are several examples that are in here. So, first one I'm going to do is the first one that's there, taking it from the top, and that's array 00. I'm going to open up both the HTML file, which we'll look at in a second, and the JavaScript file, which we'll also look at in just a second. All right. Now, just so you know, virtually the CSS file that's going to be in most of these examples, there's nothing there. All right, that's it. I just gave it a background color and just put a button on there. That's literally all there is. So I'm showing you kind of a squashed example of the second one I'm going to show you, but I'm showing you that first. So what this is going to do, in fact, let me run it for you, and then we'll just go over it. So it's all done with alerts. So I click, boom, I click the button, run program, and hopefully you can see that well enough. If you can't, you can run it yourself. This is going to randomly or generate a list of 25 random numbers between 1 and 100. There's nothing in there that says they can't repeat, so I could have the number 6 in there 3 times possible. All right. So it says here's the array in original order. There it is in ascending order. You can see that it is. There it is in descending order, and again you can see that it is. Notice the number 22 is in there twice. All right. Then the smallest element is 4. The largest element is 93. The sum of all 25 elements is 1039. And the average element size is 41.56. All right. Now, that didn't teach you a doggone thing about arrays, so let's take a look at it. Like I said, there's virtually nothing in the HTML. All right. The link to the style sheet, the link to my script file, and that's it. You know, then there's a button. So let's look at this. All right. In the next example, I've got it set up with a very simple menu. This is just running everything. But in the next example, you'll see it's the same program, but rather than running everything, it'll put up a real crude-looking little menu using a prompt, and it'll allow you to choose whatever it is you want to choose. So let's just take it from the top. Typically, when you create an array, you make a constant at the beginning that's called something like size. I mean, size is just a popular term to use. Doesn't have to be size. But again, if I change this from 25 here to 100, that'd be the only change I'd have to make then. I don't have to go back in here, whereas if here I'd say 25 here, then I got to change it here, I got to change it here, and possibly in other places. All right? So, like I said, just set up a global constant at the beginning. Also set up about 5 global variables. Now, we didn't really go over this very much, but the idea with global variables, they're good and they're bad. When something is global, what it means is it's available program-wide, and you don't have to do anything special to use it. All right, that's a good thing, because that means less work for you, the programmer. So that's the good news about using global variables. The bad news is if you use global variables, you can get what are called side effects, which means that since they're global, Any routine in the program can change them. Even routines, rather, that probably shouldn't be allowed to change them. Okay? And when you set it up, something is either global or it's not global in this language. Okay? So what do we have here? Well, this is going to create two different arrays. Okay? And it's going to end up being the same array. They're both going to hold the 25 random numbers. This will be the 25 random numbers in their original order. So that's when they're first generated. But I want to manipulate that to put it in ascending order and descending order, etc. So I'm going to make another one that's called numbers copy. So these will both hold the same exact values. The difference is the first array that you see right there will hold the numbers in their original order. The second array will allow me to choose and put the numbers in any order I want. All right. The next thing that's here, I could have literally removed this, but it's used in the other one. All right. When we do the next example, when we go through it in a few minutes, this is the menu that's going to come up. Enter a 0 to exit the program, enter a 1 to generate 25, etc. You can read it yourselves. All right. Then you're going to be asked to make a choice. That choice that you'll be asked to make from 0 through 8, that's what goes in here. But since I'm not allowing the choice to be made in here, I could have left that off. What I did was I created the other program, then stripped it down to give you this program. All right? So, think I've said this before. On the off chance I did not, there are many programming languages. For example, the one you'll take next semester, C#, that when you want to begin the program, the first thing that happens is you have to call a function named main. M-A-I-N. All right? Java pretty much works the same way. Okay? So I called my main function, no pun intended, main. But if you look at this function, it's what's called a driver. It's not doing the work, it's calling other functions to do the work. If you try to write good code, and I'm not saying this is, I'm not saying this is fantastic code, but what I'm saying is you should try to write as little executable code in a main routine as you can. You should try to move all of it out to other functions, or when we get into Java, we'll call them methods, etc. All right, and in order to do that, then main becomes a driver. I have myself likened a driver to like a supervisor, where a supervisor, it may not seem like she or he is doing a lot of work, but they know who to delegate authority to. All right, so what are we doing here? We're first calling a routine called create new array, which that's what it should do, is create the new array. Then we're telling it to display that array. Then we're telling it to sort the array in ascending order. Then we're telling it to sort it in descending order. Then we're telling it to show us the smallest element. Then we're telling it to show us the largest element. Then we're telling it to go through and add all 25 elements up. And then we're telling it to take that sum of all 25 elements and divide it by 25. Does that make sense? So when you look at it, we're breaking it down into what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different calls. All right? So when we create a new array, and this is what I want you to hopefully get out of this, is the fact that there's not a lot of work. This says, remember, we start with an array, we start counting with the number 0. So the first array element is array element 0. The last array element will be the length of the array minus 1. So instead of going from 1 to 25 in a 25 element array, we'll go from 0 to 24. That makes sense? All right. So what this literally says is, okay, from 0 to 24, and add 1 to it every time, generate a brand new random number between 1 and 100, and put it into that array location. I'm not going to draw them out, not 25 of them, but if you imagine that instead of 25, we just made 5. All right? You know, and it may be 63 the first time, 37, 12, 91, and 8. That would say that the first time through there, that would be generating the 63. then the 37, then the 12, etc. All right, yes?
Why don't you just make a number copy equal to number working after that whole loop?
After the loop, because the way that it works in this language, you can't copy an array over in one swoop. You've got to do it an element at a time. Many programming languages are like that. All right, JavaScript is one of them. Okay, so to go by what Christian was just saying, this line right here, this line 54, that's taking the 63 and copying it into there, the 37 and copying it into there, etc. So if this first thing that's right here, all right, if this is numbers original, then as I go through on the next line, it's copying the 63 from here to here, then the 37, then the 12, then the 91, and then the 8. So by the time I get down to line 55, those two arrays are 100% identical to one another. Does that make sense? So I'm creating the numbers to put in the array, then I'm copying them to another array. That's all that this routine is doing. So I now have two arrays that have the exact same elements in the exact same order right now, that both hold 25 values between 1 and 100. Then I say to display it. It's not real much. Again, ideally what you're realizing here is these are not very big routines. All right? And this will say the array in original order, all right, and it'll go through them. Now, I said before we're going to have an array with 25 elements in it. So I created something here that's called size minus 1. Well, 25 minus 1 is 24. You all know that. So rather than saying LCV less than or equal to the name of the array dot length, that's another way of doing it. Just to show you that there's other ways of doing it. All right. And is one better than the other? No. I guess the way I just did this, I ended up adding another line of code, so it's a little longer. But this is telling it to go through all 25 things that are in there, throw them into a string, okay? Then, after you throw them into the string, so the numbers we had before, I don't remember what they were, but 63, 9, 21, 8. That'll put in the first 4 numbers. So imagine it was the first 24. Comma, 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 comma. But we have a 5th number. So this is only going to go through 0 to 23. And then I did this one outside of there. Why did I do that? I don't want a comma after it. All right? Maybe that's just me, but I thought that looked bad, having a comma on the end. So by grabbing the last element and not putting it in the array, I don't have a comma on the end. You say, well, geez, I don't care. Then don't do that. Then don't pull that line out. You'll just have a comma at the end of your last element. It's no big thing. All right. What this is meant to show you now starting, notice we've got sort numbers ascending and sort numbers descending. Okay? The whole thing to do the sort is right here. This is a built-in JavaScript routine that will go through no matter how many things you have in there. It'll go through internally and compare every one. All right? And to put them in ascending order, you say A minus B, like this. To put them in descending order, you say B minus A. So literally, regardless of whether you've got an array with 10 members or 10 million members, that one line of code will automatically sort the array for you in either ascending or descending order. Now, I don't expect you to understand that, or maybe even how it works. W3 Schools, if you go out there, they've got like a one-page explanation of how this works. It's probably better than anything I could give you. It's just something internally that goes through and it says, again, if we have these numbers, 63, 8, 21, 97, and 46, it goes through all of these and it says, okay, which is the biggest? 97. Then it goes through them again, but it skips that one, and it says 63. So it goes through it again, and it skips that one, and it says 46. It goes through it again, and it skips that one, and it says 21, and it says 8's what's left. So it automatically does that for you. You can write your own routine to sort in that way as well. Why would you want to write your own routine when you've got it available to you? I don't know. So just to show yourself you could do it? I don't have any idea. But this will now display the numbers in ascending order. This will now display the numbers in descending order. All right? Not only that, would you agree that if I put them in ascending order, that I right now know what the biggest number is and the smallest number? The smallest number is the first one. The biggest number is the last one. All right? But I sort them again anyway just to make sure. All right, if I have to do the sort and then I grab the first one, if I sort it in ascending order, and I grab the first one if I sort it in descending order. The only difference is now it'll be 97, 88, 47, 31, and 6. So I either want to grab that one if it's the smallest, or I want to grab that one if it's the largest. All right? Then to sum the elements, to add them up, this is really, it is simple. That loop right there that you see in lines 124, 125, and 126, you say sum. Starts out at 0. So what do you add to it? 6. Then 6 plus 31. Then 6 plus 31 plus 47. 6 plus 31 plus 47 plus 88. 6 plus 31 plus 47 plus 88 plus 97. Whatever that is. All right? I'm not going to even take the time to do it. Let's say it's 200. Boom. Then 200 becomes the sum. All right? And then finally, let's say it was 200. All right? Then we come through here to find the average, and we just take that 200 and divide it by 8. I'm sorry, we take that 200 divided by 25, and I get 8. Now, anybody have any idea why I did this? It wasn't necessary, but anybody know why I did that? To get a decimal on the end. I wanted to keep the decimal place. So if my result was 49.6385, that'll keep that. If I leave this off, it'll drop any decimal component. It won't round it, it'll just drop it. All right? I could have used a rounding function and rounded it up or down, but I just decided to do it this way. So what I've just given you, bless you, what I just gave you is, this was a test that the class had when they took it last year. All right, I'm not going to make you key it in or do anything like that. All right, but I do hope that you'll take the time to take a quick look at it and see whether or not you understand it. All right. Now, the next one that's in here, like I said, is virtually the same program. Yes?
For the last one.
Yeah.
When you're making your numbers, is there a routine that you do?
Yeah, you'll see it, because not for that example, but for this one.
Okay.
All right. And like I said, what I did was I just grabbed the previous example, and instead of stripping stuff out, I just moved stuff around. But no, I didn't need it there, just like I didn't need that choice variable. But in this one, now it will present the array. All right. The interface is exactly the same as the other one. Okay. And if I come in here and I run this, oh, not that one. But if I come in here and I run this one, what you'll notice is different is now it comes up and it says, okay, there's the original order. Now it starts to come up with a menu. Okay. So now it says do a 0 to do this, a 1 to do this, etc. And notice there's 8 total options in there. All right. So if I come in here and I say a 1, boom, it does that. Click OK. A 2, it does that. Now it put them in what? It says that was them in their original order. A 3, there it is in ascending. A 4, there it is in descending. A 5, there is the smallest. A 6, there's the largest. A 7, there's the sum. And 8, there's the average. If I put in anything out of range, it just shows me the menu again. And a 0 ends the program. All right. I'm not going to spend really any time on this just because it's the same program as last time. Except now I do use choice. And to go back to Christian's point, yeah, now I do need that stuff in there that I didn't before. But now notice what main does. Creates the new array and displays it. And what is this? That's an infinite loop. Now, I don't remember if we talked about this before or not, but if I write myself out a real quick JavaScript program and I say var A equals 0, var B equals 0, var C, I'll just leave it like that. If A equal B, C equals true. Else C equal false. Put those in there. Please look on the screen and somebody tell me, is C true or false after that? Why? Yeah. Yes, yes. One is a string and one is a number, but as far as JavaScript is concerned, they hold the same value. All right? Because when it looks at this, it goes and it converts because it wants to compare apples and apples. So it automatically does a conversion, and it says, I don't care if they're different data types. They hold the same value. On the other hand, if I do this, now it's false. Because what it does is it compares not only the values, but it says, are they the same data type? As soon as it says, no, they're not the same data type, it's automatically false. All right? The reason I'm showing you that is, if you notice in here, I said while 1 equal 1. I could have just done a double equal there, but I wanted to make sure that, again, we talked about that's called the assignment and identity operator. It does both. All right? So I'm putting this into an infinite loop that says, hey, show the menu. Just keep showing it. If the user enters a 0, you're done. That's all it's doing. But this is, all I'm doing in here, this is creating the menu. So that's creating what comes up, when you start, etc. This is validating it to make sure that you put something numeric in, you put something in that was between 1 and 8. And as long as you did, you call the correct method. All right? This replaces a big if statement. So if I put in a 0, I just say program exiting normally. If I put in a 1, it's the same thing I showed you before. It's going to create a new array. A 2 will print the array out in original order. A 3 will sort the array in ascending order. A 4 will sort it in descending order. A 5 will give me the smallest element. A 6 will give me the largest element. A 7 will give me the sum of the elements. And 8 will give me the average. What is this doing? Look on the screen. What is that? Those 3 lines in gray, what are they doing? Somebody should at least be able to take a guess. Those lines in gray, what are they doing? No. That's up here.
By default, it should be showing the menu at the top.
Well, you're getting there. It should show you the menu if you put in anything that's not a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8. We've already checked, so that should never happen. We already validated it earlier, but just in case bad data sneaks through, all we're telling it is, hey, that's invalid. Just show the menu again. That's all we're telling it to do. All right? This create array is exactly the same as the one I discussed previously. The display array is the same. The sort is the same, ascending and descending. Finding the smallest one is the same. Finding the largest one is the same. Displaying the sum of the elements is the same. The average of the elements is the same. But what you may or may not have noticed is this program is about 40 or 50 lines bigger than the last one I showed you. Because with the last one I showed you, there was no menu in it. It just kept calling functions. When it got done calling the last one, it was done. This one is more interactive. All right? It allows you to go and take a look at what's in there, all right, and run it over and over and over again, if that's what you want to do. All right. The next example that's in here, there's a couple more. We'll go through these, and then regardless of the time, we'll take a break. You can see I didn't take any time to make nice looking interfaces. All right. These are just a bunch of examples of different things that you can do with arrays. All right. I'm not going to test you on this or anything else. You'll notice that we're creating an array here called fruits. It has 3 different fruits in it: an apple, an orange, and a plum. So when I ask for the length of fruits, this should give me 3, because that's what I put in there. All right. This shows you how you can change an element in an array. Remember, we start at 0. 0, 1, 2. So 2 is now pear instead of plum. So it should now hold apple, orange, pear. So we did. And then I printed out to verify that. All right. Then I add a new element. So I say fruits 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 is equal to lemon. If I've got an array and I don't know how many elements are in there, let's say there's 847 elements, I think, but I'm not positive. So I could put in here 848 for a new one, but I might not know for sure if that's the number. All right. So what I could put in here is fruits dot length. I have a question for you. Look on the screen, please. What is the length of that array? It's not a trick. What is the length? 4. But remember, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So if you ever say the name of the array dot length, it automatically puts it at the end. All right, that is one way of doing it. There are other ways of doing it as well. Then notice we've got our array again. Okay, if I want to grab the last element from the array and remove it, I do what's called a pop. All right. If I want to go and grab something and put it on the end, it's called a push. So you push things onto an array, you pop things off of an array. And the idea is it's based on, when most people talk about push and pop, the idea of, if you've ever gone into a cafeteria, and the idea is the person working there has got a whole big bunch of trays, pushes them down into that spring-loaded mechanism. All right, the last one that they put there is the last one that was pushed on. So it's the first one that'll be popped off. That's where they get that verbiage from. All right. There's other things, and I showed some of them in here. If instead of going from the end, you want to go from the beginning, you can use a shift and an unshift. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. Notice that unshift takes the array which held figs, dates, and cherries, all right, I'm sorry, it held these, and it adds mangoes and papayas to it. So it adds them to the beginning. There's all sorts of different things that you can do with arrays. Now, you may or may not remember this. But one of the things I gave you a long time ago, and there's plenty of references. I'm showing you one right here because I think it's the best one. You may or may not agree. You can go to W3 Schools and find out all this information, but you can go out to this website I gave you, this Hunlock, and they have an entire thing in here with arrays. All right? Where they explain what an array is, how to create a new array, because there's different ways of doing it, how to initialize an array, how to store things into an array, how to have a multi-dimensioned array. If I go down long enough, array methods reference, where if you go in here, they show you every single thing you can do with an array. And you can click on one of them. For example, I can go over that pop, click, and sooner or later it'll have to load, but it'll show you an example of how to use that. All right. The reason that you may want to do that is next semester we'll be using arrays in a lot more depth and breadth of coverage than we are with JavaScript. Yes. What slice does, it doesn't copy. It literally takes a slice out. Slice is one of the few commands that actually changes the array. With a slice, you can, but again, the idea behind a slice is kind of like you're slicing a pie. And you typically don't slice it into 8, if you slice it into 8 pieces, you got 8 people there, that works fine. But if it's a brand new pie and you're the only one, you might only slice a single piece. All right? That's why it can be used in a lot of different ways. All right, so like I said, there's a bunch of examples in here with this. And then finally, the last one that I've got in here is just called arrays. Again, not much in the interface. But what I did was I went back, and this was from like a year ago, but I went back and said, hey, I want to give you examples of all this stuff. Length, concat, etc. All these. So you can see if I count here from 8 to 34, there's about 27 different routines, methods, functions, whatever you want to call them, that you can use with arrays. You've got examples of most of them in the program that's here. I'm not going to run this. It just comes up with a ton of different alert boxes. All right? So what we're going to do after the break is we're going to look at something you don't have. We're going to build it as a class. All right? And when we do, we're going to use some of the concepts that are in here. So I want to show you that when we come back. It's a little early, but looking at as sleepy as a lot of you look right now, let's come back, please, at 9 o'clock.